Good evening and welcome to Leaders of Tomorrow, ET Now's one-stop platform for India's micro, small and medium enterprise sector. In a world driven by technology, humongous amounts of data is generated every second. Much of this data is now being analyzed and leveraged for increasing business efficiencies. So tonight on MSME Dialogues, we are exploring the vast world of big data for small businesses. I'd like to welcome our eminent panel tonight. Vijay Anand, Senior Vice President and Managing Director, India Development Center at Intuit. Manish Mittal, Managing Principal and Country Head at Axtria. Sudipto Ghosh, Partner, Data and Analytics at PricewaterhouseCoopers. And joining us from Mumbai is Prashant Mathur, Executive Vice President and Branch Head at Hansa Securities. Welcome, gentlemen. Thank you for joining us tonight on Leaders of Tomorrow. So we are exploring the world of big data tonight for small companies. Let's begin with the popular assumption. Sudipto, perhaps I'd like to start with you. There is the popular assumption that big data is only for big companies. Is that true or is that a myth?
Well, I think when we talk about big data or analytics, I think the main focus for our conversation is how do we make information as a key driver for taking better and faster decisions. So from that perspective, I would definitely say that whether it's a small or a large scale enterprise, the concepts of analytics and big data analytics are equally applicable. Now let me take a few examples. So if I look at some of the key things or key challenges from an MSME perspective, I would say that it is even more appropriate to apply the concepts of big data and analytics in the field for MSME. Right. So for example, if you're talking about some of the challenges which the MSME sector is facing or collectively they are facing, the number one challenge is probably a productivity gap. We know that 40% of our workforce is employed by MSME, but the contribution to the GDP is only 17 to 18%, right, which clearly means that there is a gap in terms of how they can make themselves more productive from a workforce perspective, from a technology perspective. Another challenge is from the perspective of the cost of financing. Right. So how they can be more transparent and they can share all the information with the external stakeholders and the lending institutions. Also, now we are also seeing another trend in terms of the reduction in the cost of providing analytics. So given the fact that there are a couple of challenges which are already there, which are very specific to MSME, and the fact that we are actually now talking about reduction in the costs and using analytics as a service, I think this opens up a very unique combination of not just having challenges from the demand side, but also right, a lot of leverage from a supply side. And hence
so analytics as a service, I'm going to come to that in just a bit. Let me pull in Manish at this point. How quick is the adoption from the MSME sector as far as big data analytics is concerned?
So I think I would say that just adding on to what Sudipto said, I think big data and analytics, even for the large companies, the adoption is at a very early stage, if you ask me. I think it is not, I would say it's just the tip of the iceberg from an overall scale perspective. Of course, there's a big adoption there, but I think the adoption is not of the level where it can be leveraged to the full maximum. So in that sense, I would say the MSME sector is also coming up in a good way. Right. I think they of course, they are a little behind the big, large companies, but the fact that I think, as we just talked about, there's a cost leverage available because of cloud computing and this computational things are coming at lower cost and you can pay as you need it. And the second thing is, of course, the businesses need much more because there's always scared of resources and they really need to figure it out where to deploy those resources. And that's where the analytics as a service or analytics as a platform can help MSME sector in a big way.
And Vijay, at Intuit, you have a host of offerings for the MSME sector. You're dealing with them pretty much on a daily basis. So how is data analytics, one, helping you at Intuit better your products for the MSME sector? And two, how does a small company go about harnessing big data?
It's a great question. At Intuit, our mission has always been to profoundly delight the financial lives of small businesses. We're all about small businesses. And so what we focus on is to make sure that, we provide that power of data, to the small business so that they can actually be successful.
Right.
So specifically, if I talk about QuickBooks, the product that we provide to small businesses worldwide, over 6 million businesses use it every day. We consider ourselves the operating system for small businesses. And so what we provide through that is, the key pain points that small businesses face are about how do I stay afloat? How do I survive? How do I grow my business? How do I serve my customers? How do I make sure that I collect my money? You know, how do I manage payroll for my employees? So those key pain points are provided in a very easy to use manner in the cloud. The big difference today and why big data is a big opportunity, and we want to bring the power of big data to the little guy, is about helping our customers, small businesses, move to the cloud, use the power of the cloud in terms of instant access to data to gather insights in a way that's very affordable, as little as a monthly subscription, so that they can actually get those insights they need to make better decisions, to be able to actually serve their customers better and provide a better experience, and also drive efficiencies within their organization.
Right. So better access to data at an affordable cost. Prashant, what has your experience been like with the MSME sector? You have a data management platform. Are you seeing early adoption from the SME sector?
So there's definitely a lot of interest that has got generated, and somewhere we have also seen some of the interest might be slightly misplaced, where the process is being seen as the end. So we find a lot of people coming and saying, I want to do big data. What we have to see is that when we look at big data, it's not really about the size of the data, but big really stands for the value that we can get out of that data.
Right.
So it's really about what is the value that we want to seek from that. And that has been a very interesting conversation that we've been able to do with some of our customers, because then we see that sometimes what seems to be very difficult may not be that difficult once we are very clear as to what we want out of it. So when we look at from a customer experience perspective, how do we enrich customer experience, how do we enrich customer engagement, and therefore how do we look at the customer data, then also look at other ways of merging the data about the customer. So looking at social media and how the same customer is behaving there, and can we really bring that data in and really look at a holistic view of this customer, which then helps us understand this customer and create some very interesting programs for that. So that I think is finding a lot of value, and we see a lot of traction on that.
Okay. So Sudipto, small companies often fear big data. It sounds complex, it sounds expensive. But do you think that small businesses are in fact at an advantage because of their size? Small businesses are often more agile than large companies, and so it is more advantageous to be harnessing big data.
It is very easy for a smaller organization to adopt to something new, and analytics can definitely be adopted in a much faster and smoother way. So they are clearly at an advantage as opposed to a fairly large organization.
Right.
The other aspect of a MSME is the fact that usually you would find them as part of a cluster. So for example, you may have a textile cluster in Surat, or you may have an auto ancillary cluster in Pune or in Gurgaon. And typically these small these MSMEs, they are not competing between themselves so much as they're competing with forces outside, say an export market or other large clients and all that. So clearly there is a need for having a set of unified analytics or information which can be delivered to them, which can look at some of the external information as well. So for example, if there is a cluster or there is a unit which is primarily focusing on exports, and if there is an external information which can be provided on the macroeconomic conditions, on some kind of a forecasting of the prices or the demand and supply situation, that can significantly improve the decision-making capability of the MSME to do better demand forecasting, for example. And that can have a direct bearing in terms of reducing the working capital, which clearly is one of the glaring issues which they face. So, so clearly there are some key advantages. One is the advantage of being small, which can help in better adoption. The second one is in the advantage of large numbers, which can significantly drive down the cost of making this analytics available as a service to them. Third is the fact that a common set of information can be used and consumed externally, which can reduce the cost of again using that information. And the fourth one is clearly if there are some indices which can be created, which can help in terms of improving the, I would say, the transparency of or the information available to the external stakeholders, then the cost of financing can also go down, because
so that's a lot of areas that big data can really impact for a small company or a company of any scale for that matter. Vijay, what sort of data insights can help small companies target new customers and tap newer geographies?
I think insights play a key role. You know, typically small businesses today operate where the owner works based on intuition. With these solutions, you know, as an example within QuickBooks, one of the things that we provide is as you generate sales receipts and give them to customers, we're able to actually aggregate all of that information and provide a nice 360 view of customers to the small business owner as to who are the people that are actually buying from you, you know, what are the products that they're actually purchasing, and give you those trends and the ability to even forecast ahead. So this view actually helps the business owner decide, you know, where they want to focus their resources on.
Right.
So for example, an area that we actually apply even within the product is something that we actually teach customers, which is about how to improve the customer experience, you know, being able to deliver a better experience for the customers. And that's about, you know, understanding the customer in the first place. So for example, if you had the data from QuickBooks come in terms of who your customers are and the patterns of buying, your campaigns for the customers, therefore, can actually be more targeted, more personalized. And that is something that we actually provide within QuickBooks. Another one that you can actually also target is taking the insights from your business and being able to compare it with the overall market, with the sector, to be able to benchmark yourself against the industry and say, what are you doing that is actually going well, and where are the areas of opportunities for you to be able to drive, whether it be in terms of, you know, acquiring customers or in be efficiencies within the business.
All right. And Manish, are small companies also using predictive analytics with respect to consumer behavior in the future?
Yes, absolutely. I think if you look at it, I think at the end of the day, all small companies are able to leverage it because, as just Sudipta talked about, the cost. And actually this cost is also becoming variable cost. This is no longer a huge cost that you need to invest upfront. So I think it is becoming a variable cost. And in that sense, when they're going and acquiring new customers, they can definitely figure it out using big data analytics, which are the valuable customers they need to go after. And based on that, if they can really drive that these are my customers, they can even deploy that what kind of campaigns for these customers are going to give me value and what kind of ROIs I can get it out of it and how much I need to invest there. So you've got hundreds of dollars of money left with me and I need to spend that money across these tens of thousands of customers. Which customer should I go after? And I can use my optimization and predictive analytics to figure it out how much more revenues I can drive out of these customers by deploying and increasing my campaigns around those customers.
Right. And Prashant, before we head into a break, I have one quick question for you. When you're dealing with the MSME sector, what's your biggest challenge in convincing MSMEs about the power of data analytics?
Definitely, the cost sometimes become a barrier, but cost is more barrier in terms of what is the value that we are going to get out of it. So I think that whole discussion between cost and value is something that we need to overcome, because again, like I said, many times it is more critical to see what are we seeing as business outcome when we are implementing processes like these. So I think that is something that discussion becomes far more enriching and far more engaging and gives us better results. Then, like I said, the starting point is not really about big data, but the starting point is about how do we want to enrich the customer experience? How are we going to get more value out of a customer?
Okay. All right. So we're going to take a short break right here. On the other side, we'll talk about the cost and the ROI that big data has for small companies. Stay with us on Leaders of Tomorrow, MSME Dialogues, only on ET Now. Welcome back to Leaders of Tomorrow, MSME Dialogues. On the show tonight, we are talking about the potential of big data for small companies. Sudipto, we were talking a little bit about the cost of deploying big data analytics for a small company. Is pay-per-use the only way forward for a small company?
If you look at from a cost perspective, there has been a significant advancement in technology in the last 5 or 6 years, particularly with the open source technologies, which have very minimal licensing requirements from a cost perspective. Also, the fact that there are now cloud platforms where organizations would not have to invest in the platform or in the hardware and software themselves. This is something which is, whether it's a MSME or whether it's a general industry, this is the trend now. So if you combine the fact that there is a fall in the cost and there are different alternative models which are coming up where you would not have to do an upfront investment in purchasing hardware or licensing software or having a lot of people who can build a solution for you, then you reach a point where you can pretty much share the information or share the data. You can share your problem statement, assuming that your problem statement is not very unique from the rest of the other players in your industry. You can very easily lend yourself to something where you can use a set of reports or a set of insights,
right,
which can be made available to you, of course at a cost, but at a cost which is probably a fraction of the cost which you would take for you to build it all by yourself.
Right.
The additional point here also is the fact that if a class of problems can be solved together. So for example, it can start from not from analytics, it can start from a business problem. And if the business problem is how do I shorten my working capital, if the business problem is how do I increase my productivity, these are the classes of problems which are not very different.
Right.
And clearly a lot of research and a lot of work has already happened in these classes of problems. So they are not new, and hence the MSME can actually piggyback on those solutions which has already been built, whether it is a preventative asset management solution, right, where it can reduce their cost of maintaining their assets, or whether it is spend analytics which can help them in getting a rein on their procurement costs, or whether it is demand forecasting which can help them in reducing the inventory and the working capital for their business. They can actually leverage that. So they don't have to reinvent the wheel. They can actually piggyback on some of the existing solutions which are already there.
Okay, so that's an interesting point. But Manish, when a small company goes out to choose a big data analytics partner, what are the parameters that it should be judging the company on?
I think in terms of the market, I think there are many vendors who are just the infrastructure providers. There's some people who are only the services providers. The challenge for a small, medium enterprise is that they can't go to 10 different vendors. Yeah. So they really look for someone who can really give a good blend of people who have the good technology background, who can build the infrastructure for them, who had a good understanding of their business and understand the domain and the industry very well. So they will look for partners who have really good mix of all that and give them and help them solve the business problem rather than the big data problems. They can leverage the big data and analytics for that problem solving, but they really want people to understand the problems of the business, at the same time understand big data and technologies enough to be able to leverage it.
Vijay, small companies, as you know, are often cash strapped. They are looking at cheap, affordable options. So please show the ROI to a small company or a micro company that really does not see investment in big data analytics as a priority and perhaps not even in the top 10 priorities of the organization.
From a small company perspective, I don't think they're looking at solving the big data problem. They're thinking about their own business.
Right.
So what we've decided at Intuit is, we need to solve it for them and be able to provide it in a simple way. So if you look at our platform, the QuickBooks Online platform, we process over 1 billion invoices every year, and nearly $1 trillion of transactions go through it. So if you think about that, the infrastructure that we've built is to be able to aggregate all of that data as well as the external data, but provide it in a simple, easy to use, on-tap way so that the small business can actually consume it at the cost of a simple $10 or $20 subscription.
Right.
So a couple of problems. Let me give you 2 use cases in terms of how the power of the infrastructure we built actually delivers value and the ROI for the small business. So on the one side, they're looking at, how do I actually make sure that, from a working capital or a cash flow, I actually stay positive. As I start to fulfill for my customers, I want to be able to get loans quickly. I want to be able to get capital quickly so that I can actually execute. Oftentimes, small businesses suffer from low credit ratings because the visibility of the business is very low with the financial institutions. So what we actually do is we take the information, the financial information, and help improve the credit rating of the small business so that they can get the capital quickly to be able to execute through QuickBooks financing. On the other side, it's about how do they recover the money from their customers quickly. Lead times often tend to be 45, 60 days.
Right.
So provide, using data, ways to identify who needs to pay you, be able to quickly recover the money through online payments and reconciliation with banks so that I'm able to keep my capital with me so that I can grow the business.
Prashant, are there particular sectors that you think big data analytics works better for, whether it's B2B or B2C for that matter?
Any industry which is more inclined towards data in terms of getting the consumer data easily obviously has a bit of an advantage. So financial services, automobiles, retail, some of these obviously have a natural advantage of taking the advantage of the customer data. But having said that, in today's world with customers leaving digital footprints across and also willing to somehow share some of the data, the transaction data, it is possible to even look at how we leverage it for other industries as well.
So before we close, I'm going to quickly ask each one of you for one tip for the MSME entrepreneur who's afraid of big data and thinks of it as an unnecessary expenditure. Vijay, where should they begin?
I think they should begin by starting with the cloud. The cloud is a game changer for a small business because it provides immense power now to the little guy. And once you actually use cloud-based services, all your data is in the cloud, available at any point in time on your mobile at any point, as well as the power of the aggregate data so that you can actually measure yourself. So what used to be available only for the big guy now is available for everyone.
All right. Manish?
I
your
would
tip.
say that don't take any business decision just based on your gut feel. I think start leveraging data. It's not expensive. It gives you the value immediately. And it's not cost prohibitive anymore because all the costs are variable. So just start leveraging it. It'll give you the right decisions and help you make the right decisions.
Okay, make better informed decisions. Sudipto, your?
I would go back to the basics. I would say that how can I improve my sales? How can I reduce my cost? How can I manage my risk? Some of the very basic questions I will ask. And then I will say that if in order to do that, what are the matrices I am measuring? Because nothing gets improved if it is not measured. So the second step is to measure, to see whether it's moving in the right direction. And then the third step is whether I can use data and analytics to move those matrices in the right direction. So then it becomes more like understanding the problem statement and then using data and analytics as an enabler to solve that problem rather than focusing only on data and analytics.
Okay. Prashant, your quick tip?
I think in the coming time, customer experience is going to be the competitive advantages for all the businesses. And therefore, I would like the businesses to go back to the customer because he's most willing to be engaged, and if engaged well, he is willing to give more business. So I would say that we should go back to the customer, listen to him, and see what we can do better for him, and use these technologies to enable this better.
Okay, thank you very much for joining us tonight, Prashant. Thank you, gentlemen. Lots of insights out there for you, the MSME sector. Make better informed decisions, quicker decisions, and help enhance your customer experience with the power of big data analytics. With that, it's a wrap for tonight on Leaders of Tomorrow MSME Dialogues. Hope you enjoyed the show. As always, we would love to hear from you. So feel free to write into us at leadersoftomorrow@timesgroup.com or reach us using social media by just putting in the hashtag LOT or call us on the number flashing on your screen. Thanks for joining us. Goodbye and good night.